It appears in the rice field, a tall figure swaying at a distance, moving as if it's waving at you. Most people assume that it's just a scarecrow and don't pay much attention. Those indeed are among the lucky ones, because the curiosity to know more often comes with a great price. If you try to look at it closely, it deprives you of your sanity. One of the first incidents that reported the sighting happened during the summer. Two siblings, let's call them Lucy and Jack, had decided to spend their summer vacation at their grandparents' home in the countryside. The house was in a very small neighborhood, isolated among the rice fields that stretched for miles. Away from the noise, it was a perfect escape to the wilderness. Unlike the bustling life in the city, places like these have their stories. People are generally conservative and believe in certain superstitions. The neighborhood Jack and Lucy lived in was no exception. Though they didn't get to hear much of the local tales, their grandmother had laid out 2 strict rules for them to follow. Rule number 1. Don't wander into the fields, especially after dusk. Rule number 2. If you see something strange in the fields, ignore it, don't investigate. Though Lucy knew that the rules were fueled by the superstition of the locals, she intended to follow them because she didn't want to disrespect her grandma. But Jack was different. Though his opinion wasn't much different than Lucy's, he was the curious one among the two and loved mysteries. Little did he know that he would pay a huge price for it. One evening, Lucy and Jack were roaming the rice fields like usual and noticed something strange in the distance. Far out in the fields, they saw something that appeared to be of a pale white color, moving. At first, it looked as if it was a scarecrow, but scarecrows stand still. This thing was twisting, swaying, bending unnaturally, even if there was no wind. Lucy squinted and said, "Looks like someone tied plastic to a pole." But Jack dismissed her as he leaned forward. "No," he whispered, "that thing is moving too much. Not to mention there's no wind, and a plastic tied to a pole can't move like that on its own." The shape continued to sway in the distance, now appearing as if someone is slowly waving at them from a distance. Jack suddenly remembered that his grandpa had binoculars. Without saying much to Lucy, he dashed toward the house, telling Lucy that he'd be back in a bit. A few minutes had passed, and Jack returned, grabbing his grandpa's binoculars in his hands. Lucy rolled her eyes. "It's a scarecrow, Jack. How many times should I tell you this?" she said. But the events had already piqued Jack's curiosity, and deep down Lucy knew that there was no stopping him until he figures out what's waving at them from a distance. Slowly, Jack raised the binoculars to his eyes, trying to get a closer look at the distant white figure. For a moment, nothing happened. All he could see was a blur. But he was locked in, constantly adjusting the lens for a better view. And finally, he saw it clearly. The air grew heavy before Jack let out a raw, violent scream, which sent a chill down Lucy's spine. It was unlike anything she had ever heard before. Jack dropped the binoculars and fell backward. His face had turned completely pale and he was sweating profusely. He scrambled to his feet and ran inside the house without saying anything, while Lucy stood there frozen. Terrified, she shouted, "What did you see?" But Jack didn't answer. Worried for her brother, Lucy ran after him, but Jack locked himself inside his room. Concerned, Lucy told her grandma everything that had happened, and the look on her face said it all. They shouldn't have meddled with something they didn't understand and weren't supposed to. Days passed and Jack started to change. He would barely come out of his room. Even when he did, he wouldn't talk to anyone and just stare into the distance, muttering something that others could not understand. He wouldn't eat much, and the dark circles under his eyes showed that he wasn't sleeping much either. Lucy tried to talk to her brother. She tried to ask him about what he saw that day, but Jack would only shake his head violently and mutter, "Don't look at it," again and again and again. A week after the incident, Jack disappeared. The family searched the entire countryside. The neighbors helped them check the nearby forest, but there was no sign of Jack. Even the police couldn't find a single trace. It's like he vanished into thin air. Days passed and the family finally gave up. Lucy returned to her home in the city, shaken and in disbelief, shattered by the loss of her brother. And after that incident, Lucy never visited her grandparents again. 10 years had passed. And one day Lucy heard the news that her grandma had passed away. Though she didn't want to visit that place ever again, she knew that she would regret all her life not attending her grandma's funeral. So, she gathered all her courage and decided to return for the funeral. The countryside looked exactly the same. The same quiet house. The same old, endless rice fields. But standing there again brought back old, unpleasant memories. After the guests left, Lucy stepped outside for some air. The sun was setting, and the rice fields bathed in a serene light. Everything felt so peaceful, until she saw it again. Far away in the rice fields, something tall and pale white, twisting in the wind as if it's waving at her. And in that moment, her heart froze. She hadn't seen it in 10 years. And now it was in front of her again, reminding her of her past trauma. But something about it was different this time. She couldn't really tell what, but it was as if it was reminding her of something or someone. Her gaze was fixed on the ground as she froze in horror, but she built up the courage to look at it again. And that's when she noticed something truly horrifying. The shape of the figure looked strangely human. It just had long arms and a slender body. Lucy's blood ran cold, because the way it was waving at her, it somewhat looked like Jack, and how he used to call her over as a kid when he wanted to play. Lucy turned her gaze away immediately, and never looked again. Even though it was painful for her, she decided to walk away, saving herself in the process. Because whatever that thing was, it wasn't her brother, and she was smart not to repeat the same mistake he made.